Hi, good evening everybody. My name is Maryke. I'm the physiotherapist from sportsinjuryphysio.com, where you can get online treatment from a physio. So tonight's session is about the menopause and runners and how it affects your body. So the things that I'm going to cover is the different stages of the menopause. I'm just going to run through that quickly. And then we're going to look at the effect on bone, muscle, tendon, joint. I'm going to see if I can answer the question of whether you should consider HRT, hormone replacement therapy, or not. And then lastly, I'll give you a few different options of things that you can use other than HRT that can also help with these effects of menopause. Excellent. So if you're new to the live streams, if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll answer them as we go along. If you're watching this on replay, make sure you put them in the comments and tag me, Maryke Low, and I'll get back to them. Okay, so let's get started with the stages of the menopause. Now, the menopause is divided into 3 stages, and I never knew this until I started reading up about it. You get the peri-menopause, the menopause, and then the post-menopause. The peri-menopause is essentially the years leading up to the menopause, and that it can be 10 years or longer. And it's when your normal estrogen levels slowly start to drop. And you can see that graph in the side there. That's kind of your normal estrogen levels, and it starts to slowly drop. And for most people, that starts around between the ages of 45 and 52. But some people get really early menopause. You can get it in your 30s even. And then some people get it rather late. Yes, so during that phase, you're already starting to see things like changes in your menstrual cycle, hot flushes, all the things that people with the menopause complain about, changes in mood, but then also what you'll see in a minute is it actually affects your musculoskeletal system. And those changes are more subtle and happens over a longer period of time, so you don't notice them until they're big changes. Then you have the menopause, and that is defined as when you've had a 12-month period or cycle where you've not had any menstrual cycles or periods. Then you are deemed to be in the menopause. At this point, your symptoms are usually at their most severe. Now, after the menopause, your body gets used to this new low level of estrogen. Unfortunately, it stays there. I used to think you get through it and it's up again. I don't know what I was thinking, but I think it's because I was young and was just ignoring the menopause. But yes, your body gets used to the new levels of estrogen and all the other hormones. And the symptoms like the hot flushes and mood swings and things usually stabilizes to an extent. Now, it's important to realize that there are other hormones involved in the menopause. I'm not going to discuss them tonight. I'm going to focus mainly on estrogen because that's the main one that seems to be affecting females' bodies as they go through this stage. Let me just get this thing up again. So if we look first of all at the effect on bone, now there is very strong evidence that low estrogen levels and the fall that we experience during the menopause affects your bone health. Lisa, hi. Watching with interest. Well, let me know if you've got any questions. Just don't make them difficult ones. Yes, so bones are probably the most well-researched subject out there, and it's because the negative effect of bone loss, which results in osteoporosis and severe cases, spontaneous fractures, are so severe, and it costs the NHS a lot of money. So there's a lot of research going into this. So let me just get my notes here. The good news is that it's not just your estrogen that's in charge of bone health. Weight-bearing exercise is extremely important as well. So when we think about weight-bearing exercise, it's great because if you're a runner, you're already pounding the pavement, and that can cause stimulation of the bones in your legs as well as your pelvis and a little bit the lower back. But it doesn't do much for the rest of your spine or your upper body. So you've got to remember that you've also got to add in exercise that loads your upper body and your back. And what the research has shown is that strength training 2 to 3 times a week of these body parts can actually stimulate bone growth and I won't say reverse, but definitely slow down the process of bone loss during this period and afterwards. The important bit is that it seems that you can have a much bigger effect if you implement these strategies when you, even before you start the menopause, so that you can build strong bones before you enter it and then maintain it throughout. And we're talking about keeping it up until the day that you keel over, really. Then the second thing that's important for bone health is diet. So getting enough calcium and also vitamin D in your diet. Now, actually, vitamin D is produced by the sun on your skin. It's difficult to get enough from your diet. So if you don't see enough sunshine during the day and you don't get out there, it's really good to actually use a supplement. And some of the research studies have shown that the mouth sprays you can get is absorbed better than any tablets that you take. Ellie, looking forward to learning about this. Well, I actually learned quite a bit just reading up about this as well. So feel free to add stuff if you feel I'm missing something out or you've got some good advice that you've picked up yourself. Good, so that's the bit about bone health. So to summarize that, low estrogen levels unfortunately makes you lose your bone density as well as your bone density more quickly. Estrogen is also in charge of building bone structure. So if you've got low levels, your bones can't react that quickly to stimulation. So it will take longer for you to build new bone if you need it. So hormone replacement therapy could be useful for this, and the research definitely has shown that. But then the other two things that's important is weight-bearing exercise. If you're running, you're getting it for your lower body. Remember strength training for the upper body and back. And then also making sure you're getting enough through calcium in your diet and vitamin D. Okay. Let me just have a quick look. So Lisa's asking, if you have a minute, I'd love to know whether my drastic loss of speed since October last year is due to menopause, peri-menopause. There's no other tangible reasons that I can see. I'm always tired and have increased anxiety too. Oh, those are terrible symptoms to have. I'm 47. Yes, actually, Lisa, we're getting to that, and I think you may see that the next section is actually about muscle. Now, estrogen has 4 main effects on muscle, and the first one is that low estrogen levels can cause a drop in muscle mass. So muscle mass is the volume of muscle you have. So to put it very simple, this is the muscle mass I have in my bicep. It's not a lot, but it's mine. And when your estrogen levels drop, it's been shown that it then decreases your muscle mass. It is more difficult for you to build new muscle if your estrogen levels are low as well. What they've seen, now they've tested this in people who don't normally do strength training or a lot of exercise. And what they saw was that strength training could turn around this muscle loss that you get with low estrogen levels, but also HRT on its own could also turn around the muscle loss. They didn't see much of an effect when they combined the two. But I will stress again, this was in a group of people who don't normally train at a high level. So if we're thinking of runners like you, Lisa, who run regularly, then I would say that strength training definitely to help keep your muscle bulk there. But second, there may be a benefit of HRT, but this has not been researched properly yet in this population. And to be honest, there's a lot of scope for research to be done within the whole field of this still. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything out there. Yes, and then of course, remember that you can't build muscle if you don't have enough protein in your diet. And a previous talk that I did about maintaining muscle bulk, it showed that the older you get, the more important it is that you get enough protein in and that you also time it right. So within an hour of your exercise sessions to get the most benefit from actually the protein you're eating. So the 3 things to take home there is low estrogen levels will make it more difficult for you to maintain your muscle bulk, but you can help it through strength training. HRT can be useful, and make sure you eat enough protein. Now, the second effect that low estrogen levels have on muscle is that it reduces the muscle's ability to contract and produce power. And this is not linked with the muscle mass. So despite the fact that you're losing muscle mass, even if you keep that, your muscles don't seem to contract as well or with as much power. And that can explain why you're losing a bit of your speed, Lisa. The reason for this is that when you have low estrogen levels, you seem to lose some of your type 1 fast twitch muscle fibers, and they're replaced with type 2 ones. And then secondly, there's a second reason which I've just forgotten. Let me just quickly see. Oh yes, this was an interesting study that I actually wanted to mention. They tested the effect of HRT on the ability of people's muscles to contract with force and just how well they contract. And they looked at, they took twins, where one twin was able to take HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and the other couldn't for medical reasons. And what they saw over a 7-year period was that HRT allowed the twin that was on it to maintain their muscle contractions at a greater force, and they were able to utilize that better. And it was basically that their muscles contained more of the type 1 fast twitch muscle fibers. So HRT is definitely an option here to discuss with your GP, but the second is also that it becomes more and more important for you to actually increase strength training that stimulates the production of type 1 muscle fibers. So type 1 fibers are built when you do any high intensity workouts. So we're thinking about, if you're thinking running specifically, it's sprints, it's hill repetitions, so fast, forceful hill repetitions, plyometrics, it's doing heavy weights. But if you're looking for explosive strength, you've got to do them with a bit of force as well. But now remember, you can't just jump into that. You've got to build up to it. So if we think of weight training or strength training, you've got to have a good base of strength training at a relatively low weight, high rep first for about 12 weeks. And then you can go into heavier weights where you can, for instance, only complete about 8 repetitions. And only once you've been on that for several weeks can you think about going heavyweight but fast repetitions to get that power development. It's best, if you want to do this type of thing and you're not somebody who's got a lot of experience with it, to actually search out the help of a coach or a personal trainer or somebody who can help you with that, because otherwise there is a bit of an injury risk there as well. Okay, so that's the bit about muscle contractions. Now, moving straight on to the third effect of low estrogen levels, and this ties into why you should be careful with introducing any strong training. Estrogen protects your muscles against muscle damage. So low estrogen levels means that when you exercise, you may actually sustain more muscle damage through exercise that you would normally be okay with. So remember that when we exercise, you always sustain micro damage in your muscles, your bones, your tendons, every part of your body. But that's normal, and it's part of how the body then repairs and rebuilds itself stronger. So that's a stimulus we need. But if you have low estrogen levels, what you may have thought of as an easy workout when you were younger or before you went through the menopause or the peri-menopause may now be seen as a hard exercise session because your muscles may just sustain more damage from it. So the important thing here is that you really take note of how your body feels, and that you don't just, we all tend to do that thing of, we think about what used to be easy for us, and then you think, but I should cope with it, even while you're dragging your leg behind you. And I've done that myself. So instead of thinking what should be easy, see how you cope, see how your body reacts to the training, how you recover. And you may find that you need to take longer recovery periods after hard training sessions, because we've just heard that you do need hard training sessions. Think about spacing your week, that you have high intensity days, low intensity days. Think about even spacing your weeks, that you, for instance, build for 2-3 weeks on the intensity and then have a good fourth week where you really cut your intensity and your volume to allow for adaptation and rest. And then remember, things like stress levels and sleep and stuff like that is really important for recovery as well. And again, it comes down to diet. So if you've got a lot of muscle damage, getting the nutrients that you need in within that first hour or 2 hours after exercise can really help the muscles recover as well. Let me just quickly see, because I think there are... oh dear, Lisa says, and effect on tendons as well. That one's coming as well for you, Lisa. And Ellie says she's got exactly the same symptoms at the same stage. Oh, bless. You two are not having a good time. Okay, then the fourth way that it affects your muscles, and this is a bit annoying because this affects the bit that we're actually better at than men. So I don't know if you've noticed in the recent years that females are outperforming men on the really long endurance races. I was just trying to Google the woman's name, but I can't remember who it is now. There was it was either last year or the year before. She ran something like a 265-mile race. It's either 165 miles or 265 miles. She breastfed at the stops during the race, and she still beat the nearest man by 2 hours. Then there's a case of a woman in America who beat the nearest guy by something like 10 hours. Now, what's happening here? Basically, um, females are much better at using fat as a source for energy for our muscle fibers. And that makes sense because we have a lot more fat in our bodies to start with than men do. That makes us extremely efficient at low intensity exercise, and we've got much better endurance than the men at low intensity exercise. So if we can stretch out the exercise over a long enough period of time and it doesn't require forceful movements, then we can beat the men. Unfortunately, low estrogen levels messes with that as well and turns that around. So we lose that. But there are studies out there to show that HRT, hormone replacement therapy, can change that around. Now, it's not been specifically tested for endurance athletes or in athletes per se. It's more studies that looked at fat metabolism and diabetes actually. And that has shown that it definitely helps with improve your fat metabolism again. So I would love to see studies come out looking at women in perimenopause and menopause who does endurance races and see if they can actually affect their efficiency with the fat burning. And also, maybe if you're doing that type of exercise, it's not affected that much by the menopause. We just don't know yet, but it's definitely an area that needs a bit more research there. Okay, so let me have a quick look. Then we're moving on to tendons. Now, I've spoken quite a bit about tendons in the last few weeks. Tendons are extremely strong structures, and what makes them so strong is that they are mainly made up of loads of collagen fibers that are packed parallel next to each other. It's type 1 collagen fibers. They've got a little bit of substrate between them, and there are a few little cells as well, but mainly these collagen fibers. Now, tendons are constantly, like most structures in the body, it's forever renewing these collagen fibers and replacing the damaged ones with new strong ones. Now, unfortunately, estrogen plays a massive role in this process. And what they've shown is if you've got low estrogen levels, it takes much longer for you to produce new collagen fibers, and they're not quite as good as the ones that they're replacing, and you tend to have a lot more breakdown of the fibers in the tendons. So again, if we think about your adaptation to exercise, and remember that any type of exercise causes a bit of micro damage in tendons as well as ligaments, everything else in the body, then your recovery period is going to take a lot longer for the tendon to recover from a bout of exercise that really strained it. And that is why it's so easy to kind of accumulate this micro damage and then end up with a Achilles tendinopathy or similar. And often, and I've seen this quite often now in my patients, they're usually around ages 50, 52, that women come in and they're really struggling to get over Achilles tendinopathies. And it's not even that they've done that much to deserve it either. Some of them just set it off with walking, and then it takes forever. And you kind of think, oh, my exercise is not working? Worked fine for the guy who just walked out of here. But it's essentially the menopause and the levels of estrogen that's stopping their collagen from repairing quickly enough. So if you're finding yourself in that position, make sure that you really take it slow with the exercises, and your progress will be slower. And it may be worth chatting to a physio or a sports doc about alternative things that can help your pain and get you back to exercising. If we think about wanting to protect Achilles tendons and other tendons in the body from similar injuries, then again, it boils down to really looking at your training load. And when you think of, I'm going to hammer on the Achilles tendon mostly because this is the tendon I see mostly affected by this. Think about things like hill repetitions, your sprint sessions, any hard running. That will all really load the Achilles tendon. So if you're doing that type of exercise, you've got to make sure that you're allowing enough easy days after that. You also, if you're prone to that type of injury now, you may have to think about, should I be supplementing my training that I do fewer running days and maybe more other types of exercise like cycling or swimming where I don't load that specific body part in the same way. It's annoying, I know, because you like running, but it may be that you have to start adjusting things if you want to be able to continue running. Again, there are certain things that's been shown to help tendons supplement-wise. Oh gosh, what's the word now? Gelatin supplements play a bit of a role there. It's not been tested in menopause, so I don't know if it'll make a big difference, but it's worth trying it and seeing what happens. Now, let me just see if I've left anything out there. No, I think that's it. Then we're moving on to joints. And this one's interesting for me because my mum, I remember when she was in her early 50s, her joints really flared up. And they flared up so badly with osteoarthritis that I think I sent it to 2 different rheumatologists because I just didn't believe that it was osteoarthritis. I thought it had to be rheumatoid arthritis or something similar because it was literally both hands and so painful. But after researching all of this, I now realize that it's a very classic, it can be a classic sign of very low estrogen levels. And they're actually now starting to consider estrogen type substances, medications to treat osteoarthritis. But I'll get to that in a minute. So to understand why this happens, you've got to understand how a joint is formed. Now, most of our joints in our body are synovial joints. That means you have 2 bones that come together and there's a little space between them. The surfaces of the bones are covered in lovely, really slippery cartilage, and the bones are held together with ligaments, but also a strong capsule that holds them together. And a capsule is made out of the same type of stuff as ligament, but it's really thick and really, really strong. Now, that capsule is lined with a synovial membrane, and that secretes a fluid which fills the whole space of the joint. Joints don't have arteries going in and out of them. They need movement to get that fluid in and out and get that nutrients into their cartilage and get oxygen in and out of the joint. So you can see that joints rely heavily on that synovial fluid. Now, what the menopause or low estrogen levels have been shown to do is it affects your quality of your cartilage. So again, it's to do with how well the cartilage cells can renew and how long it takes much longer for them to renew. Then it affects the bone health. We spoke about that, so it can make the bones more underneath the cartilage more prone to injury. It also affects your muscles. So if we think about the fact, like for instance, the knee joint, we know from research and from physiotherapy that if you can strengthen the muscles around the knee joint, you can decrease the pain in the joint. And it's because the muscles also have to absorb some of the forces that go through the joint, and they also control how well the joint moves. So if your muscles are affected, it directly affects your joints. And then lastly, it can actually cause extra inflammation in that synovial lining of your cartilage, of your capsule, which can, now I'm going to get these things wrong because I don't talk about them much, but it's something like they call it rheumatoid factor type inflammatory markers, that you get an increase of all of them when your estrogen levels are low. Now what they are seeing is if they give people with osteoarthritis, and especially the early stages of osteoarthritis, when they're in the peri-menopause stage, if they give them substances that are like estrogen, then they can actually turn that around and they can really stop the progression of the osteoarthritis. So there are definitely, if you know from your family history, from your mum's side and things, that you're prone to osteoarthritis and you're starting to see the early signs, it's worth having a discussion about this with your GP or with a rheumatologist to see if there's anything there that you can use to help protect your joints for you. The other important bits with joints is exercise is extremely important, because if you can strengthen your muscles, you protect your joints. Second, remember, no arteries, so you need the movement. So non-weight bearing exercise that gets a lot of movement through it. You'll also be happy to know that actually what the research is showing, that even impact activity like running is protective for joints. People like to think that they wear their knees out and things with running. It's not the case. What the research is showing is that runners tend to have better knee joints or less arthritis in their knee joints than non-runners. And then diet is important for joints as well, getting all your nutrients that you need in there. And the other important thing with diet is you can actually, so let me first say this. Chronic inflammation plays a very big role in things like arthritis and osteoarthritis. And there are certain or different things that can create chronic low-grade inflammation in the body. One of them is stuff in the environment like pollution. Second is very low levels of vitamin D. So it's important to get enough vitamin D in your system. Then also different food sources. So high sugar diets, processed foods, things with that's high in trans fat. That can cause chronic inflammation in the body. And also things like cigarette smoke. So hopefully you don't smoke. So yes, if you don't want to go the medication route or supplement route, then there's loads of things you can look at in your diet and your training program. And that brings us basically to, should you consider HRT or not? The answer to this is I don't know. There is strong evidence that it can stop you from losing bone mineral density, and that it can improve your bone health. There is some evidence that it helps maintain your muscle mass and muscle function. There's evidence coming out that it may be supporting your able to support your joints, that you don't osteoarthritis doesn't progress so quickly. It's not really been researched in tendons yet. But now the big thing is that not everybody can have HIT. Some people, for medical reasons, can't have it. And that doesn't really matter. There are other things that you can do as well. While I'm on that subject, there may be alternative things like stuff you can eat. I know one of my patients told me the other day about a book, I think it's something called Grow Your Own HRT, and it's all about the growth hormones and things that you can get through different foods. And I'm not talking about foods like meat that's been injected by them. I'm talking about natural things like sprouts and stuff. I haven't got the book yet. Don't know if it's rubbish. But the thing is that these type of things haven't actually been researched enough yet. So we don't know, first of all, are they useful? And if they are, to what level they're useful? And how does that compare to HIT? So yes, there's loads of research still needed in this area. Now, what happens if you can't take HRT, or what if it's not an option that you want to take? The main things that I would say that's important if we don't look at hormone replacement therapy for this period of your life is, number one, diet, because we want to keep the chronic inflammation down. And you want to get enough protein in your diet so you can build your muscles. You want to get enough calcium in your diet so that you can build your strong bones. And you definitely need to get enough vitamin D, either through supplements or through sunshine, but that is important for all your systems in your body. Then the second is strength training. Yes, fine, strength training to maintain your muscle, but slow resistance strength training is very good for building tendons as well. Just remember to give them enough recovery time. Then also remember strength training for the upper body and for your back, so that you can actually maintain your bone health in those areas as well. And then thirdly, you've got to start training smarter. Yes, it's annoying. We don't like to adapt things. And yes, you may be happy, or you may want to maintain the amount of running or the intensity you're running at. But as you get older, your body can't adapt to the training you did in the same way you did when you were younger. So if you're finding that you're picking up injuries, you're going to have to go look at how you train. And what I mean with that is, first of all, incorporate your strength training more. Second, See if you need more rest periods between hard sessions. See if you need to adjust that you, instead of doing so many runs, that you kind of swap it out for lower intensity things like cross trainer, swimming, cycling, whatever you fancy. And then also look at your training periods throughout the year, that you have part of the year that's at a higher intensity and part of the year where your body can recover and is lower intensity. But then also on a weekly basis, that you push for 2-3 weeks, and then the fourth week you kind of scale it down, that the body gets time to recover again. Something that I didn't put on there that's also important for recovery is, remember, stress levels, sleep, all of those things have an impact on the body. And stress can actually make your symptoms from menopause worse. So that is definitely something to get on top of. And if you're struggling with that and you're struggling to contain your stress, because bizarrely enough, of course, one of the symptoms of menopause is that you're also not that good with coping with stresses in life. So it's a little bit of a vicious cycle. Consider things like mindfulness. I've started doing it a few weeks back, and I must say it's difficult to kind of get not your head around, but it's difficult to focus at the beginning because my mind likes to be everywhere. But I can definitely start seeing how it's a very good way to just tap out in the day and at least be really calm for a few hours after that. And they promise me it's going to last for longer the better I get at it. So let's see. If you're interested in that type of thing, I'm busy reading a very good book called Mindfulness for Health. And it comes with audio files, even the ebook. You can download the audio files from SoundCloud. It's written for people with chronic pain, but it works really well for stress as well. And it's a very nice, I like it because the first 2 chapters explains the science behind pain and stuff like that. So it's very clear that it's not just a lot of airy-fairy stuff. There's really good research behind that. So I can really recommend that book, Mindfulness for Health. I just found it on Amazon. Excellent. So let me just quickly check if we've got any other questions coming in. Okay, home physiotherapy, Sussex. I'm late, going to watch the replay. I'm glad you're enjoying the videos. Great. So remember, guys, if you've got any questions after you've watched it, even if you're watching on replay, just pop them in the comments. And if you've got any injuries that you need any help with, remember, you can always consult me online via video call. It can be done via Skype, WhatsApp, whatever app you fancy. And I can assess your injury because I can see you move over the video and give you a treatment program to help you get better. Take care. Bye-bye.